The plan this evening is for Spencer to look at some videos of some of our brave volunteers who've sent them in, so that we have real videos of some of our members who don't mind being put under scrutiny. Spencer is fantastically placed to be able to do this for him. Not only has he taught for the Old Berks for years and years and years, he was team trainer for some phenomenally successful teams. I think first time we won the open eventing for a very long time was very much under Spencer. But he also commentates around the world. So Australia, Romania, South Africa, USA, he commentates at Badminton and Burley. So I'm sure you will all recognize his voice from being out at events. So I will hand over to Spencer. And what I'd like Spencer to do, first of all, just to so we know that he is human too. Spencer, what was the worst mistake you have ever made cross-country yourself, just so that those that you're going to be critiquing later can feel a little bit better?
It's really funny, there are a number of them. I actually did, and it's about to come out, I did a at-home 5-episode interview with Ginny Elliott, Ginny Lang, Ginny Holgate, as some of you may remember her or may not. And it was very funny reminiscing about the mistakes that we made. I think the scariest mistake that I ever encountered was at Bramham Horse Trials, and now 4-star event, and I was galloping quite happily across country, coming into what was then called the old-fashioned coffin fence, the rail, ditch rail, and my martingale, I had a breastplate on, my martingale ring got caught over my rein on the join, and you've probably heard this a lot because I make people now do what I do, and I think Ginny taught me that as well. And I went to take a pull and nothing happened, and literally ran blind into the rail and catapulted me into the bank the other side, frightened me to death. And I now wear a rein stop either side of the ring, so that never happens. But there have been a lot of mistakes, and I think one of the things that I've found very difficult to learn is to trust my own instincts, trust my gut, and ride on what I feel is correct for the horse, and not take other people's advice on the day, because usually when you've walked the course 5 or 6 times, you've made your mind up, you know your horse inside out, and you can be very easily influenced when nerves take over. And it's a really important thing to go on your gut instinct. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's yeah. Well, hopefully we're not going to see anything quite as dramatic as that on any of these videos. So, and the plan will be, if anyone is wanting to ask any questions, just unmute yourself and shout it out. But otherwise, I think Spencer is going to be able to speak to the guinea pigs and find out what they thought about their rounds and what went wrong, and it will be interesting to get everyone else's thoughts on it as well. So I shall hand over to you, Spencer, and see if we can get the videos going. And just on timing, we're looking at finishing somewhere around 7 or 7:30, something around that sort of time. So about an hour and a half. We'll see how things go, and if this is popular, we'll put on another session in a couple of weeks, looking at some more videos.
Well, Alison, thank you very much. Guys, welcome. It's great to see so many of you here, and this is new for a lot of us, the Zoom meeting. So firstly, thank you very much. Bear with, because I'm not the most technical person. I'm having to screen share. We've had a little rerun, a little practice, and I'm hoping it's going to run okay. I'm not sure, because I think we've got so many people, I'm on to 2 screens now. I've got certain amounts of videos that I've got to show you. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at these videos. Some are mistakes, some are great, and thank you very much to you guys that have sent the videos in. Basically about cross-country riding, and do get involved if you've got something that you want to ask than do. None of us have really been doing a lot of cross-country schooling at the moment, and certainly with the ground as it is now, we're not keen on doing much more. So if the eventing does start again, who wants to go anyway? So I think we'll start with the first video, Alison, if that's okay. And Esme Powell. Esme, are you here? I haven't seen your name crop up. She may be a little bit late because she had a lesson with me at 3, and then they were whizzing home, so they may not be home yet. We might wait then for Esme, and I'll just see. I've got a little Pony Club member with me, Honor McFarland. I can see, I did see Lady Christina McFarland earlier as well. What do I do? Oh, there's Lady Christina McFarland. Hello. Yes.
Esme is here. I can see.
Oh, Esme is there. Okay. Hi, Es. Oh, there you are. There you are. Okay, well, you're going to go first then. Thank you. I'm just going to find, this is where the bear with comes in. So, as you sent in 2 videos, and the first of those, I can't even pronounce that Welsh name. What is it?
Oh, I'm not organised, to be honest.
You don't know either. It's fascinating. The years I've been commentating all around the world, and I've gone up to some riders and I've said, what is the name of your horse? No idea. Okay, brilliant. So this is Lily. We call her Lily.
Okay, but you
and I've got to press screen share.
Yeah. Go, click on it.
Okay. Bear with. I'm glad you're here.
Green.
Screen share.
And then this.
This one.
Yeah.
That's.
Oh, this one. This one. There we go.
Okay.
That's Esme.
Well,
Pull up the.
okay.
Tab.
Bear with. Bear with. Bear with. Okay. So we're going to.
And then press the blue so that the sound's off.
Turn the sound off, and I'm hoping that this is going to be fairly good quality. That's a great face there, by the way, Ez, that is paused. Can you see the video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that. Okay, so this is that we all know nerves play a huge part in the start box, and it's very important that when you come out of the start box that we all get very, very nervous. You can just see there, Ez got quite close to the first fence. We'll just rewind that. And with the start box being so close to the first fence, sometimes it's difficult to get your eye in early, and it's important that when you're warming up, you just jump a couple of fences on the angle, not just in a straight line. Make sure people know that you're jumping on the angle, because sometimes it's not very clear. Just to really make sure. You can just see that Lily just chips in a stride. So now it's really time to get your bums into gear, put those early nerves behind you. And I think she gets this is at Berkshire College of Agriculture, I think, Ez, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 So you can already see that the rhythm is better to the second, and a much better jump at that second fence. And she's now getting into a rhythm, and how the course designers set out these courses, they set out for the horse and riders to get into a nice rhythm in the early part of the course. You'll never see a combination fence coming early on. They're usually around 4, 5, or if we're looking at the lower levels, they could even be as late as 9 and 10. So nice straightforward fences. You can see all the time the profile of the fences is changing, but Lily and Esme are into a good rhythm. This is now the first combination fence on the track. So eyes on the second part. You can see again, just gets a little bit close and then stands off the second part. We'll pause there, maybe get another look at that. No, we're not. So we'll go back, have another look at that. If you watch, as she jumps in over the first part, just going to pause it here. As she jumps over the first part, the roll top, she gets quite close to the first element, which then automatically will make the distance longer because you're landing shorter. So as a rider, you either make the conscious decision of holding for a short 4, there's 3 strides in here, or you push on for the long 3. It depends on what you're riding and depends how well you know each other. Lily's quite forward going. So we watch here again. She gets in quite deep, lands short, and then 1, 2, 3, and stands off. Luckily, Esme goes with her, and it's mission accomplished. But that as a rider is where you have to make that decision. Flies over that one with a little bit of an open stride, but that's absolutely fine. Obviously how these two like to go. And again, they're much more forward into the first part, that second combination. As cross country, does she like to chip in? Because some horses, as we know, some horses like to go short. They like to chip in, and some like to go on long ones. We know as a rider, you quite like going on long strides, but was she the sort of pony that liked to get in nice and deep?
She would always do this weird trot step before. If I messed up the stride, which I did quite a few times, she'd put in like a half trot stride before, instead of just taking off and flying. She would like put a trot stride in, so then she's in the right place.
Okay, so in the world of equestrian, we call it the tranter. So she basically is adjusting her footwork to take off on the right spot, because you haven't got her all the time where you would like her. So she adjusts herself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's quite clever. All right, so we run downhill to this carving. That was much nicer there, so over the ditch as well. I would have liked to, personally, have seen a little bit more control coming down the hill, just because I think going downhill, they slightly run onto their forehand, and you want to make sure that the engine, i.e. the hind end, is always engaged and it's always in control. Again, there, it was a little bit too fast for my liking. I would like to see this combination, and again, close in. Doesn't look like you always have a great deal of control, but then she backs herself off and comes down into the water nicely. Again, in quite deep and close there. So I would be doing lots and lots. Oh, we got another angle, so it was the same fence. Lots and lots of grid work with this mare, and making sure that all the time you're trying to get her in the best place. She does like getting in deep. She was deep again there, but it is looking like a very good round. At times lacking a little bit of focus. You almost look like you're chasing the watch, chasing the clock quite a lot. And I sometimes feel that can upset the rhythm of a round when you're chasing the clock rather than riding the horse, riding the pony around the track as an individual phase. So as I don't know where you've gone now, you might be on my second screen, but looking back at that, I mean, it was obviously a few years ago. What would you do personally? What would you agree with those comments? What would you do now as a rider to try and make that a better cross-country round?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I did halfway through. I think it started okay, but then I looked at my watch and decided I was not fast enough. So then just carried on. I mean, at this point with Lily, I did know her really, really well. And before I used to have control and I used to be quite calm with it, but then I just started chasing time too much. And then I just went off whatever stride I was on and just kept kicking.
Which is fine with a very clever athletic little pony like that, but then when you move on to the horses, you don't get away with that as often. And it was quite apparent that you were chasing the clock, and that can really upset the natural rhythm of a cross-country round. But as you say, you both, and it looked like you both knew each other very well, but it's a very important fundamental thing that I think you need to learn in your early days on those ponies, is to ride accordingly, and is not to learn too much about chasing the watch, but riding what you're on. because that's when, as we know, I think in the second video, that mistakes can happen, correct? Okay, right, let's go on to the second video, because what we've got is we've got thrills and spills, which is great because we don't want to continually see I think it's the other one. I think I need to get back into my emails. So we want to see when mistakes happen, because then we all learn from them. As I said, I was doing this TV interview for, okay, just trying to find this.
Right, apparently it's still quite jolty, so we're going to try and leave it like this and not blow it up.
Okay, I'm going to share this, guys, then, and hopefully you will be able to see it. We're not going to blow it up and have it full screen. So if we're going to hope this is better quality, let me know if it's not. Is that Alison saying?
Sasha, yeah.
And
so
Sasha. Okay. So we're on to Ask It Under Witchwood now, and this is again Esme, and this is a video that doesn't go quite to plan. Can you see that, guys? Okay, big enough? Yep. Okay, so again, Ask It, you start off and it's quite undulating at Ask It, and it's always very important at events like this that you ride the terrain as well as the course, and that may sound a little bit not making much sense, but the terrain at Ask It is up and down. You do run along the side of a lot of hills, and you have to make sure that your horse is in balance at all times. If you're riding on a camber, it's crucial, and very nicely ridden through that combination and on the early part of the course. If you're riding on a camber, you must make sure that you are as four square as you can be, so the horse is taking off equally on two legs and not on one leg, because that's when you get the leave a leg at a fence, which can result in disaster. This is a downhill combination, a little bit of a drop on the landing, so you really need to sit up, eyes on the second part. And that was really nicely done. Nice bit of balance between the two fences. Could there have been a bit more control coming in? Possibly. There's a fine line between control and over control, and taking away the natural instinct of the horse, which we try and train right from the early beginning stages, is to jump between the red and white flag. This fence here has got a ditch in front of it, so always thinking about having the horse's eye a little bit higher, so they don't look into the bottom of the ditch. And that was a fairly good example of looking into the bottom of the ditch. You've got to keep your lower leg on, make sure you're squeezing your horses, like you're squeezing toothpaste out of a tube, into those fences that they take off when they should do. Downhill steps, again, nice balance, and then on to this, which I think is a little left-handed corner. So really thinking about keeping the shoulder. And yeah, so down the steps, there was a lack of balance. Sorry, Ez, to have this, but thank you for sending this in. There was a lack of balance coming down the step. We watched the shoulder. We'll go back and watch it again in a second. But the shoulder, you can see as she jumps off the step. We'll go back here. As she comes, we've already run out. As she comes off the step, I'll pause. You can see at the top of the step already, because you're coming off of a right-handed turn, the natural instincts and the natural gravity pull is through the left shoulder. So you always need to think, when you're riding a fence like this, off a right-hand turn, it may be a low level, but this is where mistakes happen, and this is where horses learn to get away with things. And they are at this stage. They're little worms underneath us. They can be very wriggly. And you need to, as riders, think about all the time where the horse is, what the shoulder's doing, what your body is doing, and your eyes always focusing and following the line that you walk, whether it be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And I'm a great advocate, great fan of walking fences, not only forwards, but backwards, and having a look from the landing side of a fence to see whether the line I've walked going forwards is also the line that my eye is drawn to going backwards as well, because that makes sense then to the horses. We're not confusing them. Okay, so watching the shoulder, already there, popping out through the left shoulder, nicely positioned on the step. I could have been probably a little bit closer to the left white flag to give myself a better line. And then as we change camera angles, keep an eye on the left shoulder. Es's head is up and looking. She's a little bit collapsed in her body, a little bit collapsed in her hip. So if the horse decided, and does, to run out, then her basic natural core position isn't strong enough to keep that left shoulder in and jump the corner. So when we change the camera angle, you can see from this is a good angle now. He jumps down the step, he's gone out through that shoulder, still going out through the shoulder, and still going. But not only is the shoulder gone, but the left hip had gone as well. So she was a little bit on a hiding to nothing there. Just watch that again without me talking and let you see it. And just watch, keep a close eye. And what also doesn't help is that she lands off the step. I'm sure you eagle-eyed people watching, she lands off the step in left canter. So it's all going left, 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 and not to the fence. And that makes her, not only her job, but also the horse's job incredibly difficult. So watch here as we change the camera angle. She lands left, doesn't get corrected. He could have corrected himself, doesn't, and then the run out is as a result. So keep a close eye on everything on that left side. Lands left, doesn't correct. And then at the last minute does, but it's all already gone. So that was unfortunate, because if you had have thought about all of those things, that would have happened, because it's not a particularly difficult corner. Again, coming back to that, you jumped it, but it was a little bit lucky. So it's important on the cross country, whenever you've had a mistake, is to say, okay, it's happened, and move on. Don't let a 20 penalty become the problem at the next fence, because it's very easy to take on to the next part of the course something that's happened, and then the horses know it, you forget it, you carry on and make the horses now feel as confident as they can on the remaining part of the course. It's a mistake, we all learn from them. Some of them are harder lessons to learn than others, but that would have been quite an expensive lesson to learn. So those table beds, I'm never a great fan of jumping them. I always get a little bit wincy when I gallop towards a big table, but horses are, in general, jump them very well. And it's good to see that their confidence levels are coming back. You can see they're coming round, we're coming back to towards the end of the course. The ups and downs of the course really play a lot of part in cross country and in cross country riding. Having the ability to balance the horses, not only downhill, but balancing horses going uphill as well, is incredibly difficult. It's a fundamental part of cross-country training, cross-country riding, that you must learn to balance horses going downhill as well as going uphill. And we do a lot of that with the young horses, whether it be up banks and down banks, or finding any undulations that they learn from. Out hacking, you can find lots of things out hacking that you can play around with, but it is all those things, not leaving stones unturned, that make for much better cross-country riding. Going back and looking at that footage, it's probably something, I think I dropped you in the proverbial last night when I was on the phone to Alison and said, oh, I think Esme's got a couple of videos she'll send in. Looking back at it, how do you feel? How do you think you rode it? What could you have done better?
Oh, I think I rode it pretty terribly, even the second time round. And I'd walked that line probably 20 times before I rode it, because I knew I had a problem with corners from my previous horse, and he did have a tendency to run out if I didn't put him on the correct line. So I walked it 100 times.
This horse did?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I walked it so many times on like the day before and on the day, but then when it actually came to it, I didn't ride how I planned on riding it, and I didn't get myself on the line that I wanted to, or my mum even said to trot before to come down the steps, so I'm in full balance, which I didn't do either. So I set myself up to have a run out there.
And this is something you hear an awful lot of, and there is such a thing as walking things too many times as well. And you as a rider, you have to say, okay, look, I can't walk this anymore. I'm actually getting myself into much more of a pickle than I was previously, because you start then visualizing incredible amounts of problems that could go wrong, do go wrong, rather than the positives and the positivities that you need to create. Something you will learn, and it's a hard learning curve, horses, eventing, and you walked that, you knew what you had to do. Mum had told you to trot, you didn't do that. You were setting yourself up for things to go wrong, and did. And that is a very expensive lesson to learn, especially when these events are so expensive. But it happens. Again, talking to one of the very best. She's won Burghley 5 times, Badminton 3 times, 2-time world champion, 5-time European champion. And she said to me, she got back and she went into the ring at her next event after winning the Junior European Championships, and they just announced her as the reigning Junior European champion, and fell off at fence 3 in the show jumping. The following week went to the Pony Club show jumping, and the team had all jumped clear. She was the last to jump, went before the bell and eliminated the whole team. We all have to do this to learn. And it's a really hard learning curve, but you must not, and it's very easy to say because I'm one of the world's worst. I'm self-critical beyond belief, but you learn from those mistakes, you take positives away from the negatives, try and have your glass half full, like Mummy Joy, probably beer, and make sure that you don't dwell on those. You don't take too many negatives away, because there are lots of positives, but you know what went wrong, and then you move on. And we've been doing lots of this, you know. For a lot of young people, there are huge amounts of pressure, whether it be peer pressure, from your teammates, from your pony club mates, from school, from mums and dads and grannies and granddads. It can be so tough, and in this increasingly expensive sport, it is very frustrating when things go wrong. But they are mistakes. We are human. We do make them. We just hope that we don't do them weekend in, weekend out, that we do try and learn from them and get better. But things do go wrong, and we have to be very accepting of that. And unfortunately, if we can't, then it's really tough. But you learn from that, and watching it backwards and forwards, I'm sure you've done quite a few times. You know what went wrong. Yeah. Okay. Has anybody else got any questions? I seem to be talking an awful lot. Anyone? No. Okay, right, let's have a look at a... What do I do? I'm glad I've got my little minion here. Yes.
Then the email.
Yes.
And then choose the video.
Okay, so we've got Sasha. So Sasha, this is last year at Tattersalls over in Ireland, a 3-star long. And they went there purely to have some fun. She was riding Playtime, Smarty as he's known. Loved the good old-fashioned Irish fences. Walked the course with Zoe Wilkinson. Zoe, who used to be based at the Tapman, is now based at Ros Haywards. She walked the course and warmed it up. So she approached the course, and again, guys, really important, if you can walk the course with somebody, if it might not be mum. I know when I was coming up through my early days, walking the course with my mother was an absolute disaster. And I always try to find somebody that I respected. You have to have respect for the person that you're walking the course with, because the respect becomes trust, and you need to know that when you're walking something, they're not telling you to jump off the edge of the cliff. They're telling you where you should be jumping those fences, how you should be landing, how you should be approaching, what balance, what gear you should be in to jump the fences, because you'd be in a different gear jumping a single log than you would be jumping a combination fence going downhill, uphill, on a curve, on a turn. So really important to have absolute trust in the person that you're doing it with. If you can't find anybody, walk around the lorry park. There's lots of people very, very happy to help if you've got a question about a certain fence on the course. They're a friendly bunch, and just please go and ask. Okay, and now go back in here.
So this is
I'm learning all the time. I like it.
So you just talked about tats, but this is actually Withington you're about to show.
Oh, well, I don't want that one.
So go back on to
I want tats.
here, this one.
Oh, the tats. Okay, so tats, and then sharing.
Share.
It's very difficult when one is so old. We have to learn all these new things.
Okay, press the share button.
The share, yes.
Then
That one.
Yeah.
Okay. Sasha, where are you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Is it a very smart round?
Tassels was quite nice
Was it?
compared to Withington. If you want to watch a bad round,
Then we go to Withington after.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay. It's all well and good, everybody, and I'm really grateful for people sending in the mistakes, because they're the ones that we learn off, and we also learn the good rounds too. But thank you for sending them in. It's very brave of you. That is for certain. We did.
You said there that like I went there for fun, and if you watch this video compared to Withington, where I was terrified, you can see it in my riding. Like that.
Okay, that's
to give
good.
you some perspective.
Okay, good. Honor, so Cretin, I call her Cretin. Honor McFarlane, she brought around a DVD to watch, but of course it was a perfect one. There was nothing had gone wrong.
I was told to bring it round.
Yeah. Anyway, it's a DVD, we can't play it. Right, so then I click on that.
Press share. Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
Share. Oh, we're getting good at this. Okay, right, this is Sasha. Now, Playtime, he was Playtime NZPH. You purchased him. How long have you had him now?
4 and a bit years.
Okay. Russell! Noisy Jacques Roussel. Okay. I'm going to leave it on that screen. Was it better on that screen when we had it this size?
Yeah.
Okay.
The feedback was good.
Okay. Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. You're Snapchatting as well as the... Okay. Right.
Feedback purposes.
So this is 3-star long. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3-star long. Okay, so it's going to be quite a long course. Again, Tattersalls is one of my favourite events over in Ireland to go to, and as you said in your little bit of spiel, really good old-fashioned Irish timber. Quite a big fence there that looked like fence 3 with a ditch in front, but already you've come out of the start box, you're into cross-country gear and really eating up the fences. Straightforward fences to start with, now got a narrow fence, combination fence. Is this coming downhill? No.
Yeah, there wasn't anything after it though.
Okay, so nice little narrow fence. And then a fence in the water. Again, gears, really important. You've got to have those gears correct. Jumping in and out of water is quite difficult. The lag that water creates is something that we underestimate very, very much. White rails coming from dark to light, so not as bad as jumping from light to dark. And this is a combination fence on the top of the hill. And that was really nicely balanced. We'll go back and just watch that again. And you can see as Sasha approached this fence up the hill, she changed gear. And that was what I was talking about earlier, is having the horse within the galloping gear, the galloping speed, to be able to adjust what you're in. I was teaching, I think she's on, Lucy is on here, Lucy Miners, with Biscuit, about going up and down the gears, whether it be your first, second, third gear, but then changing that to 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4 to 2, and making sure you have the ability, the adjustability to ride your horses uphill, change gear, downhill, change gear, and stay in balance. So watch here as she comes up the hill towards this fence. There you can see the gear change and riding forwards up the step to the roll, and then again keeping lovely and balanced between the combination and sitting really well balanced on that drop. Up and down Tattersalls is known for its undulations and great use of topography. So great use of the undulations out in Ireland. Nice big open oxa, but then really nice profile to this. It's a filled in profile, so it really makes the horses back off themselves. It's something you don't have to do too much setting up. They're called cross-country terms let up fences, to give the horses a bit of a breather before then a combination fence like she has now. And again, quickly away into rhythm. And I really like to see that with riders, that they land and their getaway stride is the first stride. But you can see, unlike, no disrespect, Esme, but when we watched your round, it looked a little bit erratic. You can see Sasha staying in a good rhythm. We know this is a different level, and that Sasha and this horse have got a good deal of experience together. 4 years of a partnership. You can see that as they've gone up the grades. Difficult combination now on the turn. So it looks like she's going to go slightly across on the angle of the first one and 2 strides. And that was really nicely done. And I'm sure, Sasha, there was an option of jumping across on the angle or jumping it on the outside line on 3 strides. It depended on what you were sat on, depended on how brave you were and knowing the horse that you were riding, correct?
Yeah, and I think Zoe, who I walked it with, it was her horse's first 3-star long, and she went the outside 3, but Smarts has a huge stride, and if I tried to put 3 in, I would have run out.
And this again is great words from you, is to say to, I'll use another example in a second, but is to say to yourself, okay, that suits your horse, maybe a little bit greener, but that suits your horse, it really won't suit mine. You have to know what you're sat on. And I wasn't here last year, but I could already see, as you approached, that there was an inside and an outside line, because of the way the fence had been designed. And you saw 5 strides, 6 strides out, that you had made the decision to go across on the angle, tighten up the line, get the 2 strides, and it was done very, very well indeed. We'll go back and have a look at that. And I just want you guys as well, as Sasha comes in and jumps on the angle, you can see right from here, we'll just pause it there, you can see on the far right-hand side of the fence as we're looking at it, far left-hand side, closest to the white flag, if you jump there and headed towards this little pot of flowers, then you could curve into the second part on 3 very balanced strides. So you jump the first part on the left-hand side towards the white flag, and then stay wider for longer, coming to the pot of flowers, and then make your turn. So you jump, take 1 stride, turn on your second stride, 1 stride, take off again to get your 3. Right, we'll just watch Sasha come through here again. You can see how far she goes out as well. She's walked a line, she knows where she's going, and she knows she's going across on the angle on the 2 strides. Hi, little Jack Russell waving there. Hi, Becca. Okay, right, so pay attention. Okay, so she's changed the gear again. She's stayed wide, now on the line, 6, 7 strides out. Brilliant. And then lands and only has to sit quietly for the 2 strides across on the angle. Really nicely done. This is now an uphill fence. For some reason, you can either ride uphill to fences or you can't. It's a really tricky one, and your eye has to be drawn right to the top of the fence. It's a little bit like jumping a Normandy bank with a fence on the top, or a step up with a fence on the top of the bank. Knowing that I'm jumping this step here, I can still see the fence here. So having peripheral vision, being able to have the ability to ride in balance uphill to a fence like this doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, but let's see how Sasha tackles it. She said she had a good round, so I'm hoping she sees a good stride. And she has. Again, she changed the gear. She came in balance, because this is another combination fence, and gravity takes over, definitely takes over. And there we see the difference. And I hope we can see, no, we're not, so we go back, and we'll see here, sorry, Ez, we're using you again, is that we land on the correct leg. We land protecting the left shoulder. For one stride there, I think I just saw him bulk out of his shoulder, but you were very quick to put that shoulder back in and get him back on his line, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just watch that again, because we come up on the bank. We've got the gear, correct. Balance across the top, because we then drop down over this log, and there is that There was where he just bulked out through the shoulder. You were quick to get him back on his line, and then jump that left-hand brush corner. Let-up fence, it's a big one, but it's a let-up fence in cross-country turns. Time to let the handbrake off, let them have a fly, let them get some air back in their lungs, because it is a long cross-country. The weather conditions look perfect. Again, you have to ride weather conditions to your horse. Some horses love going in the heat, some love going in the rain, some love going on the firm ground, some love going in the mud. Slightly lucky moment there, but what was really nice to see is that Sasha has learnt over the years to what I call touch ride. It doesn't matter what length of rein you're on, as long as you keep the balance, as long as you keep the focus. And you can see as she jumps in over the log with a big drop into the water, there's a slight downhill approach off the top. You then run through the water, and he's slightly got away from you on that first landing stride. So rather than making a conscious decision of shortening the reins and possibly disrupting the canter and disrupting the balance, because you can see when he landed, he had his eye on that fence. He was looking for the flags, and it was your job as a rider to steer him there, get him there, and you knew he was going to jump. So you stay on the long rein, you keep that touch riding through, and then you land after this roll top to another very narrow fence on the same rein, but you never lose the contact and you never lose the balance. Watching it here again, lands, just props you slightly, you keep the long rein, you just move your arm to adjust, and we see that again from this angle, running down to triple arrowhead brush. You keep the long rein, you move your elbows, so you're still keeping the contact, you're still keeping that momentum and the balance the whole way through. That was very nicely done. Another ditch. If your horses don't like ditches, don't go to Tattersalls, I will say that. This was a tricky fence, I remember it well. It's a narrow brush corner, brush elbow on the top of the bank, and making sure, again, you keep the balance, you keep the correct gear going up the hill. The coal mine sees a good stride, jumps that really well, and giving him confidence between the combination fences, which is crucial in cross-country riding. So another accuracy test here. This brush shoulder, 2 strides, and again, nicely ridden, keeping a very good balance with him and keeping a very good rhythm between the elements, because it's easy to lose rhythm between those fences. And over the last, good clear round, Sasha Hargreaves. So looking back over that, I'm sure you've watched it a number of times. What do I do?
Go back onto your screen.
How?
Just press.
What?
Go. Where's your?
Sorry.
Go. Press your thing.
I'm not very good.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes. No.
Oh.
What have I done?
Oh my God, Freddie, get in here. Get in here.
hang on. Okay, I think I just closed that. Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. So watching that back, I mean, it was a jolly nice round. If you look back and you want to think about how you would make that better, criticising it, would you?
I got a little bit messy at after the water. I was kind of past all my worry fences, and I started slightly flying him, and like that second last combination, my line wasn't amazing. It wasn't the line I walked. So I would just say, like, mentally I did that last water combination and then switched off a bit and could have run, and like that corner on top of the hill, you can't really see it in the video, but I missed him really, really badly.
So he looked after you, and it's important. It's very important when you're riding around. I always try and think about having some money in the bank, because at some point I'm going to have to pay out and make sure I've got some money in the bank to pay them, because they're going to get me out of trouble at some point. It's worth mentioning as well that you weren't the fittest that you've ever been. It was a tough 2019 for you. And we have to sometimes go and ride when we're not feeling brilliant, we're not feeling 100% and firing on all cylinders. But you were probably, to be fair, yourself getting a little bit tired at that point.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
And it showed, like where you said at the end, where I saw my stride. With Smarty, I can't afford to do that because I then lose him. So if I'd done that at the beginning of the course, it probably wouldn't have gone as well. And that's where I would have changed. If I'd ridden it again, I wouldn't have done that again. Yeah,
but you did exactly the right thing with him at the water on the long rein, and you rode through there, because, like I said to you guys as you were doing that, and we went back and looked at it, it's having the ability to land and deal with what you've got. Ginny has taught me for years and years and years, and she made me for I think 4 months cross-country school, holding the end of the buckle, and that was all I was allowed. I wasn't allowed to do anything else. As much as I wanted to grab the reins, she made me ride here with my arms here, being able to steer, being able to ride, because you have to learn to have all of those, the biggest toolbox in the world, with lots and lots of tools that you can use, because the inevitable will happen and you've got to be ready and you've got to be prepared, and that's what you did in the water. So that was good, very good to see. Okay, we're fast approaching. I can't believe we're fast approaching 7 o'clock already. But we'll have another look, Sash, at Withington then, when it doesn't quite go as well on the day, because like us, we're all individual. We're not machines. It can go wrong and does go wrong.
Yeah.
I just need to.
Back to your email.
I'm trying to find it.
Oh, I think you might close it down.
Withington or Nunny, whichever's easiest. They were both really bad.
Okay.
Withington, I went a long route quite badly, so that might be quite interesting to look at though.
What?
Withington, I went long and got awarded a 20 that was then taken away, but you can see on the video why they awarded me a 20, and it's how not to ride a long route.
I think I was commentating on you at the time.
Yeah.
I did shut it down, didn't I?
Just reopen your email.
Do I get a capital M for Muppet? Okay, sorry, I closed Outlook. I'm just having to reopen it.
Sorry guys, technical problems.
Okay, here we go. Okay, Sasha, that one.
Withington.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you put not great quality video, it was raining. You were the commentator. Oh, were they nice?
Yeah, apart from when you said I had a 20 and I went long.
Oh, but you did get it. That's the trouble. And we have to. This is an interesting thing, because obviously, I mean, I've evented for years and years and years, but being the other side of it, there's so much that goes on. And if which you did, and we'll have a look at that, they award it straight away, because it's easier to take it away than it is to put it on later on. So the fence judges, they're all human too, and what they do is they say, okay, we'll give them 20, and then the technical delegate on the day will go over and talk to that fence judge and they'll talk over, because some of the fence judges actually don't, they're not quite sure. So it was taken away. So that was good news. Hi, Rose.
It was quite an interesting one because I could hear, like I heard you commentate that I picked up 20.
Never listen to the commentator.
I know, exactly. But it then like got in my head a little bit.
I know. See, that's the trouble, because you thought you were clear.
Yeah.
And then you heard some Muppet commentators say he's got 20, and then you were riding around going, I've got 20, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that took your focus away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Naughty. Right, Cher.
Yeah.
I think I've just done this one on my own.
Yeah, I'm proud.
So I'm so grown up.
I'm sacked.
Okay.
Press play though.
Shh. It's all right. I just want to put them there because I like them being there. The people. That's it.
Your audience.
Okay, right. So this is Withington. Sadly, could you? Sorry, hang on a sec. So could you just answer that and just say I'm on a Zoomy thingy? Sorry, TV, of course, TV. Right. So Withington, mushrooms, 1. Just going to let you know, Alison, you asked me earlier about making mistakes. As a rider and commentator, I feel incredibly pressured sometimes when I am commentating and riding at the same event, which I've done a number of times. And it was at Withington a few years ago in the advanced, and I was, I don't know, right up there. I mean, he jumped beautifully, he'd done a great dressage, and I came past the commentary box, and I was clear, I was on the clock, and I went straight past a brush fence that was right underneath the control box and eliminated myself. Oh. Another mistake. But I was like, oh my God, they're all watching me, and then I'm going to go back up there, and they're all and it was even more embarrassing. Okay, right. So we're on playtime, we're on Smarty again here. For me, you started off not in the gear that you had at Tattersalls. You're slightly under-geared here.
Yeah, and it got worse throughout the round. I think I had like 26 time faults or something.
Okay, so this is earlier on in the year, of course.
Yeah.
And it's April, and that was nicely done too. That was a combination fence right up at the bottom end of the show jumping. So along the top of the hill, and again, Withington's very hilly. Topography plays its part, up and down all the time. And yeah, for me, you started off in a gear that was too slow, so you're already holding on to him, which he obviously doesn't like as much. He likes a little bit of freedom running cross country.
Yeah, and I do that when I get nervous.
Yeah, understandable. You again probably not feeling like you were firing on all cylinders. He feeling keen. You're in it's a big advanced here. A lot of people use this as a pre-run before badminton or something. It's a decent advanced at Withington, and not to be underestimated. Now, this is a very difficult combination. This is where the 20 penalties came from, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So 3-part combination, and the second corner is the one that caused a lot of trouble. And you were allowed to do that. I don't know why we didn't see a great camera angle. It didn't to me look like you had presented. It just looked like you went past it purposely and then took the longer route. So if we go back, the longer route, we'll pause it. We jump that one, the longer route. So the quick route is this corner here, right with that profile towards us. The white flag is the corner, but the longer route is, as Sasha just did, is to bypass it, come in front, and then turn and jump where the red flag is the longer route. They hadn't really done enough in the way that they had explained the fence, whether you could circle in front or behind, or whether you had to be well away from the fence. Always worth, if you're not sure about eventualities going wrong, and this was one of those, if you're not sure that you can circle in front, behind, because rules change all the time in eventing, and let's face it, who reads a rule book? We all fall foul to that one. So if you're not sure, then go and ask somebody that you think will know. Either ask the secretaries to speak to a technical delegate, especially when it's at something like this, at this high level, or if it's at B90, B100, go and speak to the rider rep at the event and seek their advice. That's what they're there for. Sasha probably had what we call in the industry a brain fart, and she jumped the corner, wasn't feeling as quick in her mind as possibly she could have been. So you turned, because I think for me, you look like you could have jumped that corner easily if your head was on it and your mind was on it. But jumping that corner where you are now, you didn't commit at all, and which obviously you weren't going to jump it because there was no commitment. You then turned and jumped the alternative, correct?
I think that was the case. I did what like Esme did. I walked it over and over and over and over and over again, and no matter how many times I walked it, it didn't look any nicer. But I think the reason they marked it is because for a second it looked like Smarty had locked on, and then I pulled him off, but I had never locked on, if that makes sense. Like I was
in hindsight, advice to others, what would you have said?
Well, they're quite far away, so I probably could have jumped it and then ridden out.
You could have shouted going long, or long route.
Yeah, a bit, and I could have done it earlier because I think I was planning on it from way back.
I think she did actually shout. She did shout going long, and in fact what was quite handy is I was standing somewhere by that fence, and it was recorded because I was recording it, so the fence judge before the TA came out had actually listened to it and went, oh yeah, she's really shouting. So yeah, she's got quite a big voice to shout with, luckily.
Yeah, but I don't think she had a particularly big voice in the April of 2019 when you were a little bit of a weak chicken. So it is important, and luckily Mum was there with camera evidence, and if you can ever have camera evidence, that is always a jolly good thing as well. And it's just notable to say here that the basket, which is full of vegetables, to these two corners, it's all running on a right-hand turn, and it's running downhill as well. So we've seen, and it's fascinating that we have seen now 3 types of these fences, whether it be a B90 that we saw with Esme. We also saw at Tattersalls with you this same type fence on the downhill, with a turn. It's all come off the right turn, and yours was off the bank to that corner. It's really important. This could just be a a right-handed turn cross-country thing, because we've seen this 3 times. Really, really important to keep that left shoulder, keep that left hip, and keep your side closed down on them to bring them in. It underestimated on here just how wide and just how narrow that corner was, because we call them bull nose corners because the corners have been cut off. There's no apex to them. There's no point to them. So that's what makes them so wide and so narrow. And it's pinpoint precision at these type of fences. So they don't capture the long routes on camera. Clearly you're not jumping it. Taking the alternative, we then come up the hill, really big pull up to this double oxer brush before going along the side of the wood, jumping into the wood. This is a very narrow fence. Of course, you've got the 2 big trees either side. So if you're running out at something like this with 2 big wings like that, I'd be going home. And then again, another accuracy question in the woods. And interestingly, in the trees, you've always got to feel that you're going slightly faster than you feel that you're going, because the trees make you feel like you're going fast, but actually you're not. So it's always worth just checking the gear that you're in when you go into a wooded area, because you will feel like you're in 3rd gear, but actually you're probably only in 2nd gear, just because the trees are going that much faster past you, making it feel like you're quick. So there was one here, and then another one jumping out of out of the woods as well, on the 3 strides. And again, made that look quite long, and he has got quite a long stride, but you've been underpowered the whole way through. You know what you're in, and the trouble is, once you're in that in that pace, you tend to stick in it, and pushing yourself out of that sometimes is often worse than staying in what you're comfortable, because you're basically here having a school rounds and having a nice time in the early part of the season. This is a very, very big fence, but actually jumps beautifully. Very big ditch. Setback is the little fence. The little fence it's a massive fence on the back side of that ditch, but the horses do jump it. New water complex, and again, accuracy required jumping out, open rails, and on the angle, and there was very little to point at and aim at that fence. But you're actually riding better the further you're going on.
Yeah.
You're getting the bit between your teeth. He's getting a little bit more, up for the game. Again, another difficult combination. You're riding him. It's a hard one, because you can't sit there and do nothing on an advance. You've got to ride, because that's when accidents can happen. And lucky that you two do know each other, and he is scoopy, so he does get you out of trouble, but he probably makes you feel that you can get on with the job as well. So the return back through the water, we thought personally there was a trick missed here, because you just canter through the water and go out over a narrow brush. But we're still in the early part of the year. The old water site is where you've just jumped through now, and they were pretty nasty fences on that undulation. It's tiring, Sasha. There's no getting away from it. Jumping around a course like this on a horse that pulls, a horse that's up for the job. There's a lot of downhill. There's a lot of uphill. You've got to do a lot of organising and steering. And when you're a little bit close to that, but you took quite a tight inside line to that one, and then onto this Olympic fence. Got the Olympic flags on that fence to finish. So there was lots to like about that. Much easier. Stop here, look at me, I'm getting all techie. There was lots to like about it. It was just, you've got to think about the time of the year. You've got to think about the weather conditions. Tattersalls, it was nice and dry. It was overcast, so perfect cross-country conditions. There it was raining. You weren't feeling brilliant, so it's tough. But you made much of the day. There were a few steering issues, but you were probably as weak as a kitten. And it goes to show that it doesn't matter whether it is a Pony Club 80 or if it is a British Eventing Advanced. All these things come into every single level of cross-country riding, show jumping, the dressage coming through to the show jumping, through to the cross-country. And the 80 might be the badminton of your career. It might be the Olympics of your career. But you have to learn, and as we've all done through the years, we have to learn that the horses are trained to jump pinpoint accuracy, that they are able and have the ability to go up and down the gears. We learn that on the flat. And then we learn that we ride in those gears in balance on the cross-country course. Whether it's on the flat, on a camber, uphill, downhill, it doesn't matter. It's about having those tools in your box to have cross-country riding skills. Sash, looking back at that, you probably cringe in places, but you have to, again, take the rough with the smooth. There are some really good bits to take away from that. What were your thoughts? Because we often get back to the lorry or get back to the trailer or get back home and have a debrief. How was yours?
Mine was, I needed to kick on. So I went into the start box, as you said, thinking of the time of the year. I went into the start box planning on running slow, and it then wasn't a very nice, he normally gives me a really good feel cross country and makes it feel easy. And it felt really difficult because we never had enough canter. And I kind of went back to the start box and went, actually, okay, with this horse, we need to not run him at the beginning of the season when he can't run fast, and bring him out at a point where he's ready to be competitive, so that I'm not, and it's more in my head than in his, but if I come out the start box on him thinking backwards, because he's naturally got a big canter, it's easy if I don't get, as you said, if I don't get into that canter to start with, it's then very hard to get into it again. So I was actually annoyed at my preparation in that I went into the start box thinking run slow and then didn't adjust when it wasn't running smoothly, and I should have gone, okay, we might have planned to go slow, but it's not a nice round, it's not how it normally goes, so now kick on and actually jump.
Yeah, interesting words from you. It's mind is a very powerful thing, and psychology plays a huge part in riding. You could see, I mean, you know, right from the get-go, coming out of the start box, you weren't as you were at Tattersalls. So knowing how he is, knowing how you are, you change your planning. You may not run him at advance so early on in the year. You may do open intermediates and, you know, both get the bit between your teeth and be singing. Sometimes we can sing from the same hymn page, and we all like to sing from the same hymn page when we're riding. Sometimes they're not the same words, and I am a great believer in that sometimes, you know, you're just, even though you're on the same page, we're not talking the same language, and that's when you need to have in that toolbox the ability to say, okay, now it's not going as well as I planned, but I've got plan A, B, C, D, and E in my head of eventualities should they go wrong. And you did that. You took a long route. You actually got going the further you went on. And it's an important lesson to learn that we can't get confidence from the horses. They have to get the confidence from us. I talked earlier about money in the bank. You know, you've got to have money in the bank at the beginning of the cross country, so that if we make a mistake, and we do, is that we are able to give them a fiver and say thanks very much, and be able to dip into the bank and continue to give them some money and just hope that the money doesn't run out. Because once the money runs out, that's when they will say, do you know what, I've had enough. And we don't want that. We want them to be smiling. We want them to be gaining in confidence that we're giving them, because we can't get confidence from them. It's an impossible thing to do. But it did get better. The weather doesn't help. You also were suffering with illness as well, so that didn't help. And it's a big advance. There's lots of pressure. We talked about pressure earlier. And it doesn't matter whether it be, you know, your pony club Hunter Trial, your pony club 80, or top level. Everything plays a part, and everything means something to somebody. And just because you're feeling nervous doesn't mean that your mate over there is not feeling nervous. Because if they say they're not nervous, they're lying, or they should go home. Because nerves are a massive part of what makes cross-country riding good.
Yeah.
And it makes you ride with sympathy, empathy, and with conviction a lot of the time, because you've got to have those nerves to make it matter and make it mean something. Has anybody got any questions?
Maybe just look at the chat. There are two things in chat. Maybe we would post some questions.
There's a chat thing down here, apparently.
So not questions.
Just everyone saying, you know, Sasha's brilliant.
Just a quick one on that mind thing. A lot of it for me was Withington was against my more direct competitors for team positions, whereas Tattersalls was against people that were like the Emily Kings of the world. But to me, I'm not I don't care where I come against them. So it's like, it's kind of, if you go to like the Pony Club Opens, it's like that versus a BE. I always found like pony club areas were much more stressful than a BE, because you're against people that you know and you train with, and you don't like compare yourself to that, and it's the peer pressure that comes with that.
Yeah, it's a very good point. We talked about peer pressure earlier, and you know, whether Withington you weren't in a team, but you were against teammates, and at Tats you were there for yourself. And it was a totally different ball game, and it does play a massive part in psychology. If any of you have the opportunity, Ginny told me, and I have the Chimp Paradox, and it's a jolly good book to read. Professor Steve Peters is amazing, and I also got it on Audible, on Amazon as well, and it's fascinating because we all have demons, we all have insecurities, we all have things that we battle with. My chimp is called Charlie, and I battle with Charlie all the time, but understanding slightly more how it works has really helped. Really helped. And the more I've done, I've spoken to so many riders, got so much advice, some good, some bad, some indifferent. I've taken what I feel I need, and it might not be correct, it might not be the best, but it works for me. And we were just talking then, you walked the course with Zoe Wilkinson in Tattersalls, and she gave you a lot of confidence. Ginny, 1 year, some of you slightly more mature viewers like me might remember Ginny she was at badminton, and she jumped into the lake on Priceless, and she'd watched the closed circuit TV, which we have at the big events, and she'd seen the likes of Lucinda Green, Mark Phillips, and a number of other riders that she respected go through the lake on 3 strides. She'd walked 4, and she decided that because the likes of Lucinda and Captain Mark Phillips had gone through on 3, she would go on 3, not on the 4 that she had walked 4 or 5 times. She tripped up the step and fell over the rail, and she got into cross country in the lead. And it was one of the hardest, she learned a lot of lessons, but one of the hardest things was to go on you. Take advice by all means, but only go on what works for you. I was very much a glass half empty kind of person when I was eventing early stages. I still have those days, but I'm more glass half full than I used to be. But do talk to people. We're all here. It doesn't matter what we've done, who we are. We all are here to listen, and we're all here to chat, because it's a very tough industry to be in, and it's a very tough industry to succeed in. So we're all here. I don't know, do we have time for one more? Do you want to ask some questions? Do you want to do a second one? Has everyone enjoyed it?
I think we've probably got time to do one of, I've noticed Hannah is here and with us. I don't think Lenny is. I know we've got videos from Lenny, and we've got several other videos from a couple from Annie Miners. So what might be nice is for us to do another session in a couple of weeks. And if anyone else wants to send their videos in, that would be great. It'd be particularly nice to have some of the sort of 80s and 90s and the lower levels, and I think, as we've all seen, really helpful when things don't go brilliantly. I have a feeling that Hannah's might go brilliantly though, but let's finish on a nice high note with one of hers. If you
okay.
Really quickly, Spencer, there's a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, look on the chat, I think.
There's a question. Please, can I ask, do you have a tip to calm your nerves? That is from Alicia. Do I have a tip? So listen, nerves are the devil as far as I am concerned. I have suffered with nerves for years and years and years. And what I'd just like to tell you guys is something that you don't get told, is the likes of, and you all know Pippa Funnell, you all know Mary King, you all know these top riders. Now, Pippa, before she goes cross country at a major 3-day, is usually found in the toilet being sick before she goes cross country. Nerves are one of the hardest things to deal with, because it is a little bit like having the angel and the devil on your shoulders, battling it out, which is why I read this book and I listened to it on Audible. Do I have a tip for nerves? I wish I did, because I would sell it and bottle it. I think the most important thing is to feel when you're, I'm presuming this is for cross country, is to feel that you have every aspect covered. Leave no stones unturned. If you have any doubts at any fence in particular on the cross country, speak to somebody. Go and find your rider rep, go and find your instructor, go and find your DC that will be able to help you, because sometimes we go to these events and we feel very, very, very alone, but you're not. There are lots of people there that will help you, and lots of people there that will be very happy to give you advice. The other trick that you can try is, once you've had your 16th birthday, gin and tonic. Right. Is it 18? 18. So yeah, talk. Right, let's go. So is it Hannah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where's Hannah?
Yeah.
Oh no, she's
Left bottom.
Oh no.
There, left. Oh, there she is. Hi, Hannah.
Sorry, it doesn't-
Right, Hannah. Which is Hannah? Oh, this one. So Solihull B100.
Or Frickley.
So you had a dressage at 21.3, 2 post-show jumping, needed to clear cross country in order to win. Okay. Okay. Oh no. Right. So that's that one, and then Frickley. Hannah? Which one do you want to be shown?
I don't mind really. I'm quite happy with either.
Okay.
Solihull's just a bit quick, like the whole way round. Frickley's good, but you miss like the last 2 jumps, I think, because it rained so much the camera broke.
Well, actually, I quite like to watch Frickley though, because okay. We'll watch Frickley because I think you're doing it. I'm doing it.
I'm getting followed by Freddie.
Cretin. I know how to do it.
Sorry guys. Background chat.
So Hannah, so we're going to watch Frickley because at the moment we've watched Berkshire College, we've watched Ascot under Whitchwood, Tattersalls over in Ireland, and Withington. We've had the rain, but we've not had bad going. So I think
I'm quite lucky though, because I was 5th to go, so out of everyone, I probably got the best going.
you just
yeah.
ruined that one. Okay, we're going to do that. So we're going to do Frickley.
Can you make it work?
Yeah. See?
Beautiful stuff.
I'm so clever. I'm quite impressed. Okay, so Hannah, just before we get going, this is middle of year last year. Just tell us quickly a little bit about the pony you're riding.
Okay, so this is Slim. He's an ex-race horse. I've had him just over 4 years now. So I retrained him and then I've like worked up the levels. So this was at that point that was the biggest we'd done and the biggest he'd done. It was our first 3-day as well, and for me it was like quite a lot of pressure because it was the first like proper team experience for me, and also it was quite like varied weather. So when I dressaged it was 36 degrees, and then when I cross country it was tipping it down with rain. So yeah, it's okay.
And for those that don't know, you say this is a 3-day event. What level are you doing?
100.
Okay, and so you've done your dressage. You go cross country and you show jump on the last day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and you are representing here.
Central.
So you're on the central team at
Yeah.
Frickley Park Horse Trials.
Yeah.
So big achievement for you. Well done.
Thank you.
Great stepping stone, these championships, for a lot of young riders to gain not only individual but team experience. And could I also just congratulate you on retraining a racehorse yourself up to this level. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay, right. Let's have a little look-see then. Is this video or Pecky's? Oh, video.
Video, yeah.
Okay, right. So nice positive start out of the start box. He looks like he needs winding up quite a lot though to get into gear, does he?
Yeah, he's like asleep in the start box.
He wouldn't have been the fastest racehorse.
He was quite good, but then he won a couple and then slowed up after a while.
Okay, yeah. So you're for B100, you're in a really, really good rhythm, a really good gear for 100 level. You started your watch on the cross country. You walked this, you've got your minute markers as well around the course.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And we'd walked it with the team trainer as well, which was quite cool.
Very good. And did you gain any advice from the team trainer? Did you change any of your plans? Did it help?
Yeah, it was really helpful because, like, for me, it was the toughest course I'd done. So he just gave us some like pointers on how to ride it. And it was also, for me, it's 6 minutes, and I hadn't done a course that long before as well. So
a really big step up. And this is another important thing to say about cross country. There are so many elements to it, but the fitness of your horses, and as Hannah said, going now from around the 4 minute 30 on the cross country, if you're lucky, at B100, you're now at 6 minutes on the cross country, and that is a huge step up in stamina. Sasha, we saw with playtime with Smarty at Withington and at Tattersalls, 4-star long is an incredible step up again from the short format, long format. We maybe talk about that in another one of these cross-country sessions. So coming along here, the cartridges that we've seen so many times, looks like a combination fence. Yeah, also the water. So that was a nice bright cartridge. Just set your pony back off a little bit. The nice thing he allows you to do on the cross-country is ride him to the fences. He's got a nice way about the way he carries his head and neck, that when you take a pull, he doesn't invert. He keeps his eye focused, he keeps looking at the fences, which makes the job as a rider so much easier to ride. We often, I had a horse that I used to go cross country in a fluffy noseband just to try and keep his eye focused down. He couldn't have a metal bit in his mouth. He was very, very sensitive. So watching you two go cross country, you've got a really nice pair of hands on you. You keep your hand nice and low, which encourages him to keep his eye line good and low and level as well. Very nicely out of the wood. And we haven't had any problems so far, I don't think, with the videos that we've seen of the elements of jumping from light to dark and dark to light. There may have been one earlier on that was jumping from dark to light, but obviously doesn't pose as many questions as the light to dark element. Just standing off there in that middle element, not sure, we'll just have another look at it, whether you were both, I think this is the thing I say about being on the same hymn page, but not singing the same words.
We weren't sure if they were going to go off 3 or 4, so that was one of the things Simon had said was just wait for them, and because he's a very small horse, I really wasn't sure what he was going to do, so I just kind of
I think in a situation like that, if you didn't have time because you were one of the early competitors, 5th to go, is to make sure in a competition environment like this, when you have it's a bigger competition, have spotters around the course. Amelia's yawning, is to have spotters around the course that can relay information back to the start, to you, and let them know. I personally, I'm going to watch that again, I personally would have liked to, and I don't know whether you agree, would have liked to have seen you more committed, either on the 3 or on the 4, because I kind of felt like you left it up to him and he had the ability to run out if he wanted to.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah,
I think I should have come in, and because he'd been going so strongly previously on the course, trusted him that he was going to take it on as 3 and not back off because it was skinny.
Yeah,
so
but also at the same time there, you could have made the conscious decision, because you were early, to bring the information back to your teammates, is to say, okay, I'm going to hold for the 4, and then get back and say, actually, I held for the 4, but the 3 was definitely on.
Yeah.
I got there on 3. Because when you have that slight indecisiveness, that's when the horses can just start questioning us. And we want to, as I said, we want to be giving them confidence. We don't want them to be questioning us at any point, even if we don't know. And I use a great analogy of this when I'm teaching, is I always say, never ask a question unless you know the answer. So when you're going cross country, never expect them to do something that you don't already know the answer to. So in that situation, with that combination fence, I would want to know that they knew the answer, because if they're going in and questioning me, it's opening up all sorts of possibilities for something to go wrong. So well done for explaining that and saying how you felt too. So a little bit short to that, which made this distance here questionable, and then much better to the 3rd element. Good. Okay, right. So light to dark, but we've got fairly miserable weather conditions off of a turn, and just has a good look. So again, coming back here, you don't have much time to turn in the trees.
I was really worried for this one as well. He previously didn't understand water.
Yeah.
So this was the one I was most worried about, was near the end of the course when we were both a bit tired as well.
Okay, and you know as well as I do, and everybody else that's watching, listening, is when you have worries, that goes down the rain. What goes on in the brain goes down the rain. Another brilliant saying that you pick up. But coming into the trees, I would have, and I don't know because he is a retrained racehorse, how adjustable his gear is in the canter, is I would have liked to have activated the canter a little bit more, that I had it a little bit more contained and possibly gone wider, because you cut the corner there a little bit. You're only on a straight line for 2.5 strides, 3, which then made him just dive over that brush. It's a difficult one because, you know, I wasn't there, you can't see, but you can only just see from the video footage that we've got. We'll just watch that one more time coming into the trees. So just watch here. He's fighting a little bit, but I would have liked the gear change to be more dramatic. The undulation there didn't help. 3 strides on the flat. You sat up well, you kept his balance through the water, which is really nice. And then over that brush on. So nearly home, and been going really well for the entirety of your cross country, and you look like you're very much both enjoying it, both got a smile on your face, you've got that problem fence behind you, but always remember, if you're worried, they will sense. So it's important that as riders, we kind of don't let them know how scared we are, because then they'll know. We've got to say, it's good. And they're like, okay, it's good. We like it. But that was really good. That was a super run, and well done, you. I presume your first Frickley as well. So great round. There was obviously a couple of places that you, what I would like to call polish up, but a massive achievement, a massive asking. I love his expression. I watched his ears the whole way through. And I'm a great, if any of you have listened to me on FEI TV or on Horse and Country, everyone thinks I'm slightly weird because I'm a great ear watcher. I love watching their ears because it tells me an awful lot about what's going on in the horse's brain, and how confident and how much they're enjoying it. So well done, great round. Cross country, stop share, getting good at this, and really good because you're 4 years you've been together. You've trained and taught him everything, and you know each other, so you trust each other, and proof is in the pudding. Good job. We'll see what video there is next time to watch. Or Alison, or anybody. I don't think we've got any more questions there. Any more questions from anybody?
Superb. Thank you ever so much indeed, Spencer, and thank you to all of the volunteers as well who have put their cross-country skills to Spencer's fantastic critique. That's been really, really helpful to be able to do that. And it would be really good to perhaps do it again, as I said, in a couple of weeks' time. So anyone that's got some videos, do ping me an email across, ideally with a sentence just to let Spencer know what happened or what went wrong. And that would be fantastic. So yes, I think is that the clapping hands there that's appearing on Spencer's. So yes, thank you ever so much indeed, Spencer. Really appreciate it. If everyone can put a little note there for Spencer in the chat, or give him a thumbs up, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Spencer.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
See you soon, everyone.